Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another podcast from the College of Vedic Studies, Birmingham. We're here again for another session to look at the world through the lens of Bhakti, or the yoga of love and devotion. We recently had a lovely podcast with Ravinol Chambers, whose documentary Road to Vrindavan is now out in the ether for you guys to watch. So please go to roadtovrindavan.com to watch this beautiful documentary on the topic of educating girls and the difficulty and obstacles they face. It's a really touching documentary. With our courses, we also started part 2 of our Bhagavad Gita chapter and verse sessions, which is on a Wednesday evening. So please make sure you've signed up or have a look at the courses. We've got a website now. Hopefully my genius tech guy in the background will share that at the end of the session. We've had about 500 students now go through the various cohorts through the courses over the past 2 years, and it's proving to be a wonderful journey for us as teachers and the students as well. It's great. So what about tonight? We have my friend Shyam Govinda, who I've requested to come on live with us to talk about his journey into Bhakti. He's doing great work in the south of the UK, and he's got a great Instagram, which we'll get into towards the end, which are about his thoughtful reflections on life, on Bhakti and things like that. So I hope to unpick a lot of these things. But for now, Shyam, I'd like to welcome you. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Balaram, for having me on today. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. It's just nice to be on. Nice to get the opportunity to share my good fortune. So I heard many years ago that if we ever to come across something good, we should share it and give it back to others.
Awesome. Yeah, good. I'm glad you've agreed to come online. I know it's it's daunting sometimes. Like, what are you going to go live? We're going to talk about, but even I think that every Monday evening that I'm going to do this, so don't worry. So there's a few people saying Hare Krishna, Niti Shet. I can see that's representing there. I think that's great. So before we get into the incredible work you are doing with your Bhakti community down there, please tell us a little bit about your life, kind of before Bhakti. What was it like growing up? Where were you born and raised?
Sure. Yeah. I wasn't introduced to the path of Bhakti yoga until I was 25. So I had a good bit of life before then. So I was born and raised in Crawley, in Sussex. Lived the regular life that most people live. Go to school, college, university, and so on. I wasn't particularly interested in spirituality or religion or anything like that. My family were very pious and hardworking. My mum was from Kenya, my dad from India. They moved here in the late 70s, and I had a regular upbringing, to be honest. I was around people from different cultures. I'll tell the PG version because I'm sure I don't know if it's the right environment to completely. I'd experience.
We can certainly hint at things. Yeah. People can fill in the gaps, but you had a full life for the first 25 years, should we say? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. Experienced everything in life, pretty uneventful. I think the first 25 years, nothing out of the ordinary. Had traveled a bit, enjoyed life, had a good childhood. 25 was the age that I really I had a shift in my life, I guess.
So I wanted to just pick up on the fact that we both love 90s hip hop. That's the sound of my youth. So it's the sound of your youth as well, I'm sure. It was like a revolution going on over in the States, and we're kind of listening in on that revolution, right? Yeah. So what brought you to like a spiritual path, or did you have an inclination? You say that you didn't particularly, you had a pious upbringing. hardworking and good-natured in that sense, but not necessarily spiritual. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think many, I guess many Hindus could probably relate. Parents were very pious, very, you could say, religious to a certain extent, not philosophical. My parents raised us, with, the circumstances that they had. They'd come from a different country, with expectation and dreams, if you like. So they worked hard. So I guess they gave us all the material things that we would need to have a good future. So religion wasn't really a big part of me growing up. My parents had their own practices and things like that, but there was no philosophical basis to it. It was just what their parents had taught them, or their grandparents had taught them, and so on. It was wasn't particularly religious. But when I was 25, I was asked to go on a retreat in France. I think many of you might be aware of Pandiv Sena. It's a youth group that does some amazing things around the country, around the world actually. So I had some local friends who they were already practicing the path of Bhakti, and I'd been to their house a few times, and they told me about this retreat, and they said, being very honest, I used to smoke, I used to drink, I used to eat meat. All those things that are, I guess, ideally unfavorable to the path of Bhakti. So, they convinced me somehow to go on this retreat by telling me so many different things. So, and I had no idea what I was going to. I didn't have any previous experience with anything spiritual or, connected to the path of Bhakti. So, got on this plane and flew to France and got on a bus with a load of people I don't know, and me and my friend from Crawley, there was two of us that went, and literally we just got off the coach when we got there, and the first thing I wanted to do was to go around the back of the temple to have a cigarette. So literally gone around the back of the temple and sparked up a cigarette, and like all these people that they're probably regulars, so their jaws just kind of hit the ground. It's like, what's this guy doing? Doesn't he know we're at the temple? So I was like, completely, ignorant to the fact that there's an etiquette to follow. It's probably not the ideal thing to do. But yeah,
How did you feel? Like, what? Obviously, you just felt like you needed a cigarette, but then what happened? Who said it to you? Were they kind, or were they just like?
Nobody really said anything, but I think when you look back in hindsight, you reflect on a lot more things. One of the things I find with life is the lessons are always when you look back. It's not in the moment. I was kind of where I was. It's that was one of the experiences that I always remember, because I always appreciate how far I've actually come in terms of not just gross habits, but even internally. So that was my first experience. And, I spent 8 days there. And for the first 3 or 4 days, I wasn't really enjoying it. And then, after a few days, there were, I had really amazing discussions with, some of the other Bhakti practitioners there. And by the time the retreat had finished, it had a really significant impact on my heart. Not philosophically so much, but I felt a sense of gratitude, especially to Srila Prabhupada, who so many of the youth were speaking about. So I think that was the main thing that I came back with, was a real appreciation for Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, I think probably take maybe a few generations. Like we say within the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, Srila Prabhupada, externally he'll probably be known as Bhaktivedanta Swami, and he's so scholarly, right? And it will take a few generations, I think, before he's really recognized, in that light. So what was it that you said you felt some gratitude? What were you being grateful for?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that I'd met there, they were speaking about what he had done. A 69-year-old man had got on a ship on his own with practically no money, just some books, with just a mission to really just give spirituality to others. And there's actually a really amazing prayer, if you like. It's called the Sad Goswami Ashtakam. And in there's a really amazing line where it says, Dhira Adhira Janapriya Priya Karo Nirmatsaro Pujito. So it means that these Goswamis, so there's these 6 saints of Vrindavan that were about, a few hundred years ago. And this other saint is describing their qualities. And one of the qualities that he describes is that he says that they are liked by the gentle and the ruffians. So he's saying that everybody likes them, not just the gentle people, even the ruffians really like them because they're completely free from envy. So when I reflect about Prabhupada, because I often reflect, I think, what was it that really attracted me? And I was still kind of in that, ruffian kind of, mentality, if you like. And I look back and I was like, yeah, a genuinely saintly person attracts everyone, because, one of the main qualities of a saintly person is that their heart is free from envy, which is one of the, main obstacles that we have to overcome when we're practicing spiritual life. So, when I look back, I think that's what it was, is that he seemed like someone that loved everybody deeply, and that's why he made this voyage over from India to the West.
Yeah, we're certainly indebted to that voyage. I'm just reflecting on even during Srila Prabhupada's time in the States, there's stories of some of his disciples. They would unknowingly, not knowing the etiquette, would be outside having a cigarette or a spliff, tie up their dog, then come in, listen to Bhagavad Gita, you know what I mean? And even Srila Prabhupada, when he'd share a flat, he was sharing a flat, and this individual had a cat, and there was like meat for that cat in that same fridge that Srila Prabhupada was using. So it's like that tolerance, tolerance to just, just allow people, just, okay, in your own time, stop sparking up cigarettes.
It's amazing. There's so many stories, and one of my favorite, actually, if you don't mind me sharing, it's not a long story. It's just, there's a picture of Srila Prabhupada who's standing in a queue, and there's like 5 guys in front of him, and Srila Prabhupada's at the back of the queue, and they're all holding towels, and they're all queuing up for the shower. And this is like many years ago, in the beginning, years of him coming to America. And one of the captions there was, he was so humble that, even though he was so exalted, he would never correct anyone. He would just, happily just queue up. And it's like, generally, if you see the way that people treat saintly personalities, it's like they're revered, they're given the best of everything. But Srila Prabhupada would forego everything just to care and nurture those people that were under his care, which was, when you hear stories like that, it fills you with a sense of trust in this person, because I think that's what Bhakti is really about, is that we find those. There's a quote actually by Isaac Newton where he says, if I have been able to see further than others, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. And that's really the mood of Bhakti, is that we find those people that we have complete faith and trust in, that they're going to be able to give us that vision for us to see things that we ordinarily wouldn't be able to see. And I think when you hear stories like this, it gives you faith that, no, this person is a genuine, pure soul. And I think that's what it was for me in the initial stages of my introduction to Krishna consciousness. It was just a sheer gratitude to Srila Prabhupada.
Wow. So, yeah, it sounds like you're just kind of deeply touched by this individual who's sacrificed so much for you, despite not knowing you, despite, you know, just having the vision that there would be. I know your initiated name is Shyam Govinda, but before it's Jiggy, isn't it? Where we all know you as Jiggy. So those
right.
Jiggy and Crawley, he's gonna need some mercy, which is what Bhakti is about, right? And you've certainly experienced some mercy on that trip. So let's go through like how did you really kind of start? What did you start either reading or doing, or who were you around from age 25? Like let's talk about your journey going forwards.
Yeah, sure. So obviously, you know, I've been to this trip, this retreat where I've returned back, you know, full of enthusiasm. Whenever we experience, and I'm really like this. If you ask anybody that knows me, they know that, you know, if I experience something amazing, I'll multiply it by 1,000 and tell everyone about it. So naturally, I came back and started telling everyone how amazing this retreat was, and you know how amazing the people that we had met. But I think, yeah, definitely that seed had been planted to want to just do something for Prabhupada. I mean, on one side there was like the culture. Like I wasn't very cultured because generally, like, you know, we have our parents, but then you go to school and you're just in different environments. So I wasn't really that aware of spiritual culture. So my lifestyle didn't really change so much for the next 2 years. But the one thing that I did do was I was regularly going to like discourses and just hearing about the path of Bhakti, hearing more about Prabhupada's story, becoming more inspired. And I think that was an important lesson looking back, because there's a real emphasis on sometimes on giving things up, which puts a lot of people off of, you know, spiritual life or religion or whatever, because they feel like I need to give up everything in order for me to be like this. I need to give up who I am. And I think that's probably one of the things with my journey was I didn't do that. I still pretty much carried on doing everything I was doing for another 2 years. And there's an amazing verse in the Gita where Krishna actually says that, you know, giving things up just by saying I'm going to give it up probably won't last, because it's kind of you're artificially doing it. Whereas if you experience something, a higher taste, naturally the things that are unfavorable to that higher taste just fall away. And I genuinely, I could say I've experienced that, because I didn't make an effort to, you know, change my lifestyle drastically, but I did make an effort to regularly go once a week to hear about Bhakti Yoga, to spend time with the other practitioners, and just being enthusiastic to do those things. And naturally, I found myself after a couple of years just coming in more alignment to the path of Bhakti. In terms of my lifestyle, which is when I started to take more responsibility and actually wanting to do something to give back.
I'm just going to reflect on that, because we did actually speak about this in one of our Bhagavad Gita sessions, because I remember the verse that you're talking about. It's talking about repression, and the Sanskrit word is nigraha, which is like you're suppressing your desires. And we gave, because we asked our students to think of different ways this is true, and one of the examples was cartoons. How, like, as a kid we watch cartoons, and then when by the time we're teenagers in our 20s, we're not watching cartoons, or not as much anyway, not like every weekend. But you don't sit down and decide, right, from this Friday I am going to no longer watch cartoons, right? You just naturally get a taste for something else, and the taste for cartoons just disappears. You don't even realize that it goes, right? So it sounds like over those 2 years, you're getting a change of taste. Does that sound right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I think the main thing was that in my previous lifestyle, everything was based on impulse. It's like I have to feel good right now. Everything I was doing was about feeling good right now. Whereas I found in Bhakti, and over the years, even up until now, is that there's a sense of happiness, whereas before it was more about just feeling pleasurable in the moment. Whereas Bhakti provides you just a sustained sense of happiness, whereas the other is just like you feel good then, and it's just, you know, you wake up the next day and it's like, you know, what have I just done, you know? So yeah, there's a kind of there's a real difference in terms of even our concept of happiness in both lifestyles.
Yeah, cool. And then so what if we can kind of move forward to like this desire to want to create like a Bhakti community, because I know there's a lot of work you've been doing over the last few years to really establish a center and, you know, have a Bhakti community there. Please tell us how you've kind of gone into that.
Yeah, so obviously after those few years, you know, I still had that sense of wanting to do something to, you know, give back, and there were already, you know, events going on in our locality, and, you know, as Providence would have it, I ended up inheriting the service locally for just trying to push things forward and I guess coordinating what was happening in Crawley. So that happened around 2009, and, you know, I just carried on doing, with the help of, you know, a few others, building a nice team that we could start moving forwards, and, you know, just carry on doing something small in a way that was sustainable, consistent, come together and build good friendships. And that carried on.
How important was that, making sure it's sustainable and consistent? How important is that?
Yeah, pretty important, because there's so many facets to it. It's, you know, the financial commitment that you have to make, time. You know, time is a precious commodity, the most precious commodity. So, yeah, it was just making sure that, you know, what we're investing in is sustainable, because you know, even to this day, we don't have any, you know, just like a temple, we don't have any full-time devotees who are living there and just, you know, that's all they do. Everyone either works or, you know, has a business or is, you know, studying. So fitting everything around that it's quite difficult. But I think if you have a common purpose, and it's easier when you don't have so much to commit to. And back then it was just, you know, we'd hire a hall, you know, few people would cook, you know, and then we'll organize a program, organize speakers, and people will come along and, you know, enjoy the show, if you like. And that carried on for a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, before we moved into the center that we currently have.
I'm gonna ask Maipur, my tech guy, to I think we do have some pictures of, like, I think the state of what the building was in, and then obviously what it looks like now. I just want people to, certainly if they're in the South London area or even South Coast, they can consider, you know, linking with your Bhakti community there, because it's really nice. So we'll give Maipur a few seconds to do that. Yeah. Oh, here we go. He's good. He's on it. He's awake. So what's this?
So the building that we actually got was it was kind of like a state, as you can see. It was unused, and there's so many ways around how. I mean, this is out to anyone that wants to start doing something in their own town. It's, you know, of course it does require effort, but it's possible. You know, it's if you have a team of people who share a similar vision. You know, you find yourself a building this, you know, we can provide resources of how it can be done, and within a matter of years, we were starting to develop a more organized way of moving forwards. And that was one of the things that Prabhupada mentioned, actually, that you know, organization and intelligence is the way for us to grow a community. You know, of course, there's so many aspects of you know, practicing bhakti. But being organized it can be underrated sometimes, because you know, it's the whole the stereotypical kind of view on spirituality and why people are attracted to it is because it's like you can just be free and do whatever you want. But actually, from the Bhakti tradition, one of the main aspects of Bhakti is that we want to give it to others. That is such a key ingredient of Bhakti yoga. And I think if we want to give it to others in a way that is holistic, we have to organize. We have to plan in a way that people's time that they invest is maximized. So we all work, we study or whatever, but the amount of time that we can actually go to a place and invest into our spiritual life by associating with other people, we have to find ways that can be maximized for the individual.
Yeah, it's what you said. So something was interesting. What you said. Oh yeah, you said about being orderly or being organized. Sorry. Yeah, because the idea of spirituality, like you said, is being free and spontaneous and going with the flow and all that. And then it's like, well, no, we need to start on time and we need to finish on time and all that. And then it's like, I don't kill the vibe, man. You know what I mean? Like spirituality is like about being free. But yeah, even I've learned over the years that it's a balance between the two.
Yeah,
it's like classical Indian music. It's where you've got like the start and the finish. You got the bit and the boom, right? But in between, you can like have some spontaneity, but there needs to be some organization and some order. Otherwise, things don't get done, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit of both. Like things don't get done, but it's also we want the reason why we do it is because we want people to benefit from this path of bhakti. We want people to take the maximum benefit. It's not that we want to organize and bring people in so they can also do something. Like the center is there for everyone to benefit from. And I think anyone who is inspired to be involved in that way, we found that they also want to be involved in organizing to make sure that people are maximizing their exposure to the path of bhakti yoga. And being involved in outreach to other people is just a consequence of progressing in your spiritual life. It's a natural progression.
So I couldn't help noticing that everyone was wearing. Michael, get that last picture up. I think everyone was wearing blue. Is that just coincidence? Was that?
That was planned. It was planned for Nityananda Trayodashi.
Oh, I see. I got it. Yeah, Michael, if you can put that picture back up. And I think I saw another one where everyone's wearing yellow. So I'm guessing that's Gurpurnima. Okay, so this one. So this is your little crew, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. You've got a picture of Nityananda Mahaprabhu in the background. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are those lights? Those can change and be blue, or is that coincidence as well?
So, there's lights attached to the wall.
Yeah.
Some people think it's pretty tacky, but I like them when all the lights are off and you stick them on purple or blue and you're in the kirtan. Like I personally think it looks pretty cool, but not everyone agrees with that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And is this
this was my wife's birthday, so when we have community devotees and anyone a part of the community, it's their birthday. We open it up for them to celebrate there, and nice. So the community can come together. So and yellow is kind of her color, so everyone yellow for her.
Bright and happy.
Yeah.
Well, she's Australian, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's it. Sunshine. So okay, so I was reflecting on some work that I was doing, and it's talking about like the 5 pillars of well-being, and one of them is being connected. Like there are 4 others, but one is being connected. So this sense of community or common unity, it looks like this is what you're providing. So what would you say is the essence of what you're kind of giving people when they come? Like if someone's saying, okay, or if I say to my friends or family or people that are listening, and they're in the south of London or they're nearby, what are they going to get if they come and plug into your community there?
It's a great point. I mean, I personally have understood this a lot more during the last year when we've had the lockdown, because technically without community, you could just sit at home and just watch all your, discourses and lectures and everything online, and, listen to your kirtan online, and, have it on, speakers at home. But I think I've definitely appreciated more the value. I appreciated it before, but more so now after the lockdown, that, Bhakti is not just, yes, we do all these activities when we come together. We chant together. We discuss philosophy. We talk about, life together. But I think in the last few months, especially, I've seen so many different people that are having difficulties, struggles in life. It goes beyond just the philosophy and kirtan. Sometimes that can come across a little bit artificial. We develop an affection for each other to the extent that we actually want to lessen the burden of people that we care about. So I think that's what the community has developed. I think is that we've developed relationships to the point that we actually care about each other's lives, the daily details or the weekly details of each other's lives. So I think just being connected in that way to each other, that it doesn't become impersonal. It's not just theoretical ideals that we supposedly live into, but in reality everyone's just doing their own thing. So I think that's the value of community, coming together and really being a part of each other's lives, and just opening up our hearts, opening up our homes, reaching out to each other, what do you need? Because it's not easy, it's like we shouldn't have this misconception that just because we took to this spiritual path, everything suddenly becomes easy. It's like the struggles are, the struggles are real for everyone, whether you're practicing spirituality or not. Yeah. And I think that's what community brings. Community brings that opportunity to practically do something for each other. And it becomes a family, I think in my wedding speech, a lot of our community came out to Australia where I got married. And, one of the things that I really wanted to express is that, I see my real family as the community that we have, our Bhakti Yoga Center. And was just trying to express my gratitude to them, because I genuinely feel that, it's very easy to just look at things in this lifetime, that I have my family and people that are connected to me by blood, but I think the community is quite I guess the most important, because it looks at things from a much broader perspective, from a spiritual perspective. So but yeah, it can easily become we can easily become aloof from just day-to-day life. So yeah, for me, the community is quite important to kind of bridge that gap between the two.
So yeah, certainly, like empathy is like a central pillar for Bhakti, right? It's like a central theme, and you can't have, this goes back to your original point, you can't have empathy if you've got envy. Like you earlier on, you're saying envy, because envy is like the happiness of another person's sorrows, or the happiness of someone else's misery, right? Either you're causing it or you're seeing it and having that happiness there. Whereas like empathy, compassion is like feeling pain when someone else is going through pain. Being happy because of their happiness. So like Bhakti's like the middle theme. Again, in one of our sessions, sorry to cut you off. In one of our sessions, we were talking about friendships, and this is what you were just saying. And it's like we came to the conclusion that we have friends, then we have real friends, and then we have divine friends. Like there's like 3 levels. So it sounds like that when you're kind of expanding your family, you're expanding your friends. It's like you're spiritualizing them, rather than, it's like you're going beyond blood. Not that you get rid of your blood relatives, like if they you have a spiritual connection with them. So is that the feeling you're getting, like you're expanding? And what do you feel about that point?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned it. It's not to minimize any kind of blood relation that we have. that's also super important to, carry out our duty in a loving way. But I think, just having I guess, a more objective view on it, not just where we are now, subjective reality in this world, but understanding that this is just one life, but we can maximize what we can accomplish in this life spiritually by developing these relationships, because we're all complex people, we're all complex beings, and we have so many different facets to our conditioning. So investing in good, healthy relationships where we are able to be ourselves and be empathetic towards each other, but also have that scope where your friend can call you out on stuff that maybe you need to be told, because it's easy to keep a distance and look saintly to everyone, but actually no one really knows what's really going on. And I think we need that. That's a really important part of our growth. We need people who we have faith and trust in.
And I think for me, I'm sure you'll say the same, that our wives are the people who hold the mirror up to our own selves.
I can guarantee you my wife's just smiling right now as you said that.
So is mine, I'm sure mine is also. So how have you seen this community grow then? Tell me, before, as I really, last kind of 10, 15 minutes, before we get onto your reflective writing, but tell us how you've seen the community grow.
So initially, when we were, even after we opened the center, we were really happy because it's like a building and it's like this accomplishment. It's like, you feel proud that, we accomplished something, but it's just the beginning, I remember our metric for success used to be, 80 people came to the program or 100 people came to the program. Yes, that's a success. And then the next week it'll be like 20, so one of the biggest lessons we learned was quantity can never be the metric for success. And I think, a few years back, we did shift from putting so much emphasis on just, one-off discourses, lectures, which we still do, and moving that towards just reading and discussing to get together in a group. So we have, 4 or 5 groups now where, we have, good, I think maybe 8 or 9 people in each group coming together, reading, discussing, presenting. So they're able to digest the philosophy of Bhakti in their own lives, personal to them. Because, obviously, I think you probably had the same experience that when you teach, it's probably the best way to learn yourself. And I think that's probably been the biggest, I guess, growth area in the last few years, is that it's become less superficial. It's become, we've developed a lot more substance in how we view that growth of the community. And it shows, it shows in the commitments that, individuals are making to their own spiritual practice and giving out to others. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that, unknowingly, one of the principles that the Bhakti tradition teaches is that we should try to focus on 3 things, which is Namaruchi, Vaishnav Seva, and Jivadaya. Namaruchi is everything that we do that contributes to our, you could say, our chanting of the Mahamantra, which is so many things, because there's so many things that contribute towards it, towards being able to improve our meditation. And then there's Vaishnav Seva, which is the way that we interact with the fellow practitioners. So people that have been around longer than us, and are, you could say, more committed. We can serve them by, being there to lessen their burden. If they have so much stuff going on, we can actually help them. And that's actually one of the methods to attract grace, because, as you mentioned earlier, attracting grace is one of the key elements of progressing in spiritual life. And then people that haven't been around as long, we can reach out to them and help them and guide them. And then obviously we develop friendships with people who, you know, in essence, our peers. And then the last one is Jiva Daya. So Jiva Daya means, you know, we give what we've received, we give to others. So we reach out, we organize, you know, we try to reach out in a way that can resonate with people, with where they're at. So we've tried, you know, unknowingly adopted these three things as, you know, the pillars of our community, and it's worked really well. And we've kind of just stumbled upon it, but it's actually there in the text as, you know, an important aspect of spiritual life. So
let me just reflect that back, just to kind of summarize that. So it's like Namruchi is like the first pillar, should we say that, where you're actually cultivating like a taste for your spiritual practice, and then by doing Vaishnav Seva, or service to the Vaishnavas or the practitioners of Bhakti, you receive grace. And then Jiva Daya is how you redirect that grace, because Daya means like mercy, right? So Jiva means the soul. So it's like you redirect that grace that you've got and spread it around Crawley.
Yeah, totally. You've hit the nail on the head. But yeah, that's pretty much the essence of how we try to keep it simple and relevant to anyone that wants to come to the path of bhakti.
So Mayapur, can you share some of the pictures? Because I know you had a Rath Yatra, which is beautiful, and I saw some kids in your photos from the, it's called a Bhakti Yoga Center, right? Is it BYC? Yeah. Bhakti Yoga Center. So Mayapur, if you can just share some of these pictures. Yeah, so is this on what is this, Crawley High Street or something, or where was this?
This is like, yes, bang in the center of Crawley Town Centre. So it's surrounded by shops.
Yeah.
So many people walking through. So I think last year would have been the 11th year, if I'm not incorrect.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the year of the Rath Yatra. So
you've been doing it for a decade, yeah.
So
I just wanted to. So Michael, if you could just get that picture I found with they're like kids at the front. I want to just reflect on myself in that situation. Sorry, I cut you off again.
No.
But so this idea of taking the holy name, taking the chanting Sankirtan to the streets through Rath Yatra, that was brought by you guys. Okay, so this is what I want to say. So I actually have been brought up in a Bhakti household. Michael, just keep this picture up. So like when I see kids in a community like this, I remember my childhood, because it was literally every Saturday was like a birthday party, because we'd go to someone's house, we'd do crazy kirtan, have amazing prasad food, and it'd be someone's birthday because there's so many of us, so we'd always have cake. So literally every Saturday evening was like a party, and that was like for years and years and years. And so like this is, I just want to reflect this to you, is that, you know, you don't realize what you're giving these children just by the efforts of, you know, converting that wreck to a Bhakti Yoga Center and just having this, you know, week in, week out, you know, gathering. Because like in Bhagavad Gita, it says everyone finds, you know, the bhaktas find joy because they enlighten one another. And that's you're not just growing in numbers, you're not just growing in width now, you're growing in depth, because you're going, like you said, it's less superficial, which means you're going deeper. So I just wanted to reflect on the fact that you've got like kids and all of that. Yeah, cool. So,
yeah, I mean, this picture is actually the last program that we had in like the community center that we used to hire out before we moved into Bhakti Yoga Center. Just quite a special picture. But on that point, it's this is one of the things that we're also quite passionate about, is making the experience that the children have a fun experience, not necessarily like it must be done like this, but just make it fun in a spiritual way, so that the children have a positive impression of, when I went here when I was younger, I had a good time. And that's the essence of it. Because if you look in, throughout the Bhakti texts, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are so many examples of Bhakti practitioners from a young age. They were basically exposed to spirituality of some form or another. Narad Muni, Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, and so on. So the importance of just giving the children a fun experience, but that mystical, spiritual, being touched by spirituality at a young age. Even for me, even though I wasn't, I guess, exposed to the path that I'm following now, when I was younger, my uncle, who recently passed away about a month or so ago, he used to play tabla, and he would travel around like the UK, London and Brighton and so on. And he used to take us. And even though we had no idea what they're doing, and we just go with my uncle. But when I reflect back, and a lot of these things are, when you join the dots backwards, it makes a lot more sense. And one of the things that I reflect on, and I was saying this at the speech at his funeral, is that, I had no idea until I reflected after you've passed away that you had such a big influence on why I ended up coming to this path, is because I had those impressions at a young age. I just never realized it, and these spiritual vibrations, they can happen they're beyond the intellectual platform. So, the importance of just having that around children from a young age, even if it fructifies at a later date, it's real, and I can definitely vouch for that.
So yeah, it goes back to your point of nam ruchi, because ruchi means like taste. And if you think about anything that we're force fed, like I was never forced to chant like on beads or anything. I was never forced to wake up and do arti and all this. It was like an invitation. It's like a constant open invitation. And when the kirtan crescendos, you can do nothing but jump around, right? That's what happens, right? So yeah, just reflecting on the fact that you had that taste at the level of the soul, and it's just kind of come out. It's just burst out of you, and yeah, like you say, join the dots backwards, and you realize that's a nice bit of gratitude there. So just the last kind of 10 minutes, if it's okay, I just want to talk about some of your Instagram. I personally love it. So Maipa, if you can just like hit up some of the posts that I screenshot. Tell me about your journey into self-reflective writing and all of that, please.
Yeah, sure. Just like there are so many different milestones that we may have gone through, starting from having the cigarette at around the back of the temple, to becoming a bit more serious, to taking up some responsibility, and then opening the center and so on. And I think one of the biggest shifts, and probably the most significant one for me personally, was just starting to introspect, because I think one of the problems, even if you are doing so much externally, is you don't know what the driver of those things is. Like pride could be the driver, is like, oh, we're doing these programs. Oh, we opened a center, and it's just like, oh, you're doing so much great, service. You did this and you did that, and through those years, the driver could be pride. We don't know until we actually are introspective and try to understand, like, what is the motivation behind why I'm doing this. And I think that was probably the first reason I started writing for myself on my phone. I would just open the notes app and start writing stuff down, and my own kind of what's going through my own mind. And then I started to write a blog a few years later. There was something really powerful that I heard from someone that was quite inspirational to me, which I think definitely shifted the focus from just being external to actually doing something to develop the right motivation, if you like. And he said that you could be a philosophical theist but a psychological atheist. So like, philosophically, we can say I believe in God, or I believe in this path and it will lead me to this place. But everything that we do and everything that we feel on the inside is like contradicts our belief. So when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's so powerful. It's like what the internal dialogue that I'm having, does it reflect the theory that I'm kind of reading? And when I read that, it was powerful, because even in the Gita, Krishna says, the super soul resides within the heart. So that was probably one of the reasons why I initially started to write more for myself than anything else.
So I'm just going to reflect that, because there's a few themes that have come up there. So it's like when you get put into a position of leadership, you're leading a community, and you kind of, what you're doing is you're looking at your own motivations. Like, am I really serving these people, or am I serving myself? Like last podcast we had Mayuran, who was releasing his book The Hypocrite Within, and we were discussing the fact that we choose to put Krishna on the throne, but we want everyone to see that we put Krishna on the throne. That's our real motivation.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So it's a similar thing. It's like a subtle pitfall.
Yeah,
so this reflective writing was like almost like an antidote to make sure it's like you're not how do you put it, philosophically theist, but psychologically atheist, or even selfish, like psychologically selfish.
Because if we really believe that Krishna is in my heart, or if Krishna is in your heart, if we believe in the soul, like that should make a big difference in my motivation. It should make a big difference in how I treat you. It should make a big difference in everything, because there's no one left to fool, because Krishna is in my heart. So I think that was definitely one of the reasons that I wanted to start writing for myself, so I can actually get what's in my head out into the ether, if you like. And I still do that. It's not like I've conquered that challenge. It's like Lord Chaitanya says that weeding is perpetual. It's like it's not like you go in the garden, you pull the weed out, and you never need to weed again. It's like it's an ongoing thing. It's like you wake up every day, and it's like practice. But through that practice, we can, and obviously the combination of hearing, chanting, and the practice of introspection, and that introspection is the weeding for me. And I found, to small degree at least, definitely progressed. Not in a way to blow my trumpet, but it gives me faith that no, actually this works. Because the things that I'm reflecting on now are not the things that I was reflecting on a few years back. So it's like there's progression there.
So Michael, could you just put that one back on? I think it was the theme might have been judgment. So I think we've got a mutual friend in Prashant. I think it's Josh. He might be. He did some blog, and I would receive emails and everything like that. So that was really nice. So it's that's kind of that theme of introspection, leadership. In fact, I think I've got it on my phone just in case Michael hasn't. So this one that Michael just put was: never judge people by what others say about them. Get to know people yourself and make up your own mind. Like, it just seems so obvious.
Yeah.
So what happens? What's your process, Michael? Leave this on while we talk about it. So how do you come up with that? What happens? Do you just sitting and you're thinking, or you're How do you go about this?
If I was to be honest, it's like I never want people to get this impression that it's just like, oh my God, it's so wise. It's like, but these are all from my own mistakes. I write all this stuff that I write is because I've made these mistakes. It's like because especially in the age of social media, because what happens in the age of social media is like especially if you're a part of this a community where you only know people virtually. You've most people that you are friends with, like you haven't really met them offline. It's just online. So it's this, you've built up this whole idea of this person because you've kind of met them online, but we don't know what they do offline. We don't know the struggles that they've been through, and anything. It's and that's combined with what hearsay, what XYZ said about that person. And we don't take into account that XYZ person that said this thing about them, I don't know what motivation they had behind saying that, what issues they've got going on. So I think there's so many different things, and again, it comes back to my own mistakes, that I've made these mistakes where I've actually judged someone, but when I've actually got to know them or I've met them, I'm like, oh, they're actually such a nice person, So a lot of the quotes are my own mistakes, my own way to kind of realign my own biases and judgment, if you like.
Michael, throw another one up. Let's maybe look at one more. For those of you who are tuning in and are on Instagram, please look up Shyam Govinda, and please follow him to see some more of his mistakes. So how if someone, okay, now let me say one thing first. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada wanted bhaktas, wanted his devotees or the members of ISKCON to be writers, to write. He wanted us to write. So I'm just applauding you because you are doing that, and because it is that de-weeding process. Let's look at another one. If you feel there is an absolute necessity to either disagree with or correct someone, do it in a way that they feel you're a well-wisher and not just there to correct them. I need to sort that one out. I'm a bit of a dictator. This is such a difficult one for me. Like I'll call out anything that's wrong.
Me too. I'm also like that. Like I want justice.
Yeah, that's it. I'd rather have a right fight, and I want to iron out any injustices, irrespective of feeling. So yeah, this is a massive.
Something else actually that comes to mind, that I think it helped me quite a lot to just put it into a framework, is this whole idea of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Is I feel like when we come to a spiritual path, we have the text in front of us, and we're like literal about everything. Everything we hear, we literally try to practice it. But then we have an experience in the real world over time, and then we kind of we kind of rebel against what the thesis was. And then I feel like maturity really comes when we try to figure out how to align the two. And I feel like writing really helps with that, to kind of vocalize our concerns and just to try to bring that into alignment, because otherwise it's really difficult, because it's not as simple as like reading something or hearing something and living it out. So a lot of it has to come through experience and making mistakes and realigning ourselves. So yeah, that whole principle of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis really helped me.
That's your tool. It sounds like it's a constant recalibration of your consciousness and mind.
That's
going on. Cool. So we've reached time. We've gone a little bit over, but it's cool. I knew you'll be all right with that. Are there any kind of final things you'd say to our students? They're kind of starting to crack open the Bhagavad Gita. Some of them are going on to Srimad Bhagavatam, and they'll be going on to Chaitanya Charitamrita. Is any kind of words of advice for these students that are embarking on this path, smoking or not smoking.
just what you said before, about staying connected. Connect with people that you resonate with, connect with people who are inspiring to you. Keep it real. Don't feel pressure to, prematurely commit to things. Do it in your own space and time. It's important to stay connected to a community. I can't emphasize enough the importance of having good friends, good spiritual friends, and I would say it's the most important thing in spiritual life, actually, having
and it's like the basis of that community as well. Like there are so many communities we can be part of, but it's just nice. I just want to highlight the three pillars or the three principles that are central to your community, or Bhakti community, of having a taste for spiritual practice, Namaruchi, Vaishnav Seva, like serving the ones that are elevated or free of impurities, pure devotees, we say, and then giving that mercy as part of the process. So thanks.
Well summarized.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for staying up with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure, and you make it a lot easier by being a great host.
You're very kind. So in 2 weeks we've got Urmila Mataji, who is a great individual. She's in education. Anyone who wants to kind of send any questions beforehand, please send that over to us. Please check our website. We've got a new website that Maipur has been working on so nicely. We've got a course on Sanskrit. We've got a course on Dharma. We've got the Bhagavad and Srimad Bhagavatam courses, and we're getting a Chaitanya Charitamrita course. So Shyam, thank you so much. I wish you a good night. And for anyone still with us till now, all the people, there's some people from Australia have been messaging as well, so I don't know what time it is there. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Very well.
Hare Krishna.